Mike McCool here in the Royal Examiner Studios, and with me today is Superintendent Greg Drescher, the Warren County Public Schools. I guess that's your title, and we do it. I appreciate you coming in.
Absolutely.
We were talking at the budget meeting the other day on the 7th, and I said, well, come over and talk to us. And you says, well, if they pass the budget, I'll come and talk to you. So they passed the budget, so it's an interesting thing. The public was really, you were there, and really, I guess it was almost 50-50 in a way.
Yeah.
There's some against it and some for it, and even the ones that are against it are for it, but...
Yeah, I guess the first thing I like to really do is thank the community. This has really been, these types of things are always tough in a community to do. I think at the end of the day, the community does support our schools.
Right.
And they do want what's best for our students and our children, because that's who they are. They're
that's the way the community will go in the future.
Yeah.
We paid for this in years past.
Right.
It's taken us a lot of years to get up to having good facilities. I can remember when I hired a general manager years ago, and he lived in Fairfax, and he was commuting, and he moved up here. First thing he did, he moved to Winchester because he didn't have adequate housing for at the grade that he wanted to live in.
Right.
And then he put all his schools in Winchester, primarily because of the school system. Of course, this was 30 or 40 years ago.
Yeah.
But the idea was people judge a community by the schools.
Absolutely. It's one of the first things that people look at, whether you're a parent or whether you're a business or industry.
That's right.
Absolutely.
And they look at that schools, and I think that's an important part of our community. It's also a big chunk of our budget.
It's a large chunk. It's about 60% is what I understand of the county budget. Our budget for this year is $57 million.
Right.
That's a lot of money, and I personally take it very seriously to do the best with those dollars that we can. We educate every public school child in the community, and parents send us their very best. And sometimes some of those very best have many needs. And so we need to meet those needs no matter where they are.
Well, just before I started this, I told you I went over to LFK, and the Apple Dental Group presented their Teacher of the Year award to Natasha over there in the pre-K.
Right.
And it's a special needs class,
Yes.
which I didn't even realize, and I don't think people even realize, and it was primarily geared around children with autism. And who would think that we would have a program like that? It's one of those, kind of unsung heroes.
Right. We start working with children at birth almost coming in, and we have programs starting at age 3 that are at our schools. But we work with students in their homes primarily, and also there is some at our school sites as well.
Right. She was saying there's actually a screening process that the school system has. So these are things that, we're talking about budgets and about teacher salary, but we're kind of forgetting about some of these programs that maybe we need to do a little more marketing of our programs to let the people know all the little things that $50 or $60 million goes to do it. A lot of talk was about the pay. And about pay. It's always about the money. It's about the pay.
Sure.
And I noticed when we had the comprehensive pay study, and we talked about that. I was there, and it looks like you've taken a lot of effort to develop this study, this plan, to try to equalize and to have fair pay for your teachers.
Well, what we're after being equitable. And being in a fair market. So, we compete. It's just the reality of the world.
Right.
We compete with Winchester, Frederick County, Shenandoah County, Clark County, and even Fauquier some. But the Shenandoah County, Winchester, and Frederick are, if we did not lose teachers to those counties, our turnover rate would be dramatically lower. We'd retain many more teachers.
Right.
So we're not trying, it would be great to, but we're not trying to be like Loudoun or Fairfax and have those salaries. We know that's not what we're able to do.
Right.
But we at least want to not lose them to our closest neighbors.
Ones that they can drive to and still live.
And some already live there as well.
And that makes it a little hard when you live in Winchester and you do get an opportunity, even if it isn't for more money. It's still a hard decision not to take it.
So we'd like to make salary not the reason people leave.
Exactly.
So that's what the compensation study did for us, is take a look at all the areas around us and then help us with a plan about how to implement increases so that we would meet the market. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to be fair in the market. This was not just about giving people raises. It was about holding our teachers here and attracting new teachers when we need them, so that I can tell a parent, you know what, you've got a good, experienced, caring teacher in every classroom. That's what I need to do.
Well, I've always said, and I know it's probably not on the budget subject, but I've always said, when you have large classes, and it takes an exceptional teacher to be able to teach and manage 30, 40 kids.
Or even 25.
Or even 25. So, maybe, I always said, well, when you get your class size to about 10, then a good teacher can do that. But the problem is there's a lot more good teachers than exceptional teachers. So, it's a dilemma. How many, where are we going to go with teachers and class size? And like I said, I was just back over at LFK, and I was surprised at the number of aides that these young classes have. I mean, the teacher.
Especially in the special services.
Especially in the services. I mean, my daughter is teaching pre-K and kindergarten in Malaysia. That's not in Warren County. She had to go a long way. She got it.
Does she need one here?
Well, when they come back, it'll be first on their list, I can tell you.
Good.
But they finally got her an assistant, and you don't realize how much, and she only has 10 or 12 kids. And you can imagine it takes a lot of work at that age.
And especially in the pre-K, especially any one of us with 10 or 12 3-year-olds.
Right.
We can just imagine what that's like.
You can imagine. Well, and
especially with special needs.
It is special needs, and it's a lot of work. Let's talk back about the pay again. Now, we had this year, this is a thing you're going to phase in over, a 3-year period?
That's the plan. Plan's a 3-year. What we're trying to look at, the compensation study looked at all of our employee groups. I don't know if people realize, teachers are about half of our employees. The other half is everybody else.
Right.
We've got, bus drivers. We got instructional assistants. Of course, we have administration. We have all of our maintenance department. We have auto mechanics and bus mechanics. So all of those people, we have a finance department. We have a personnel department. All of those people help run our school system.
Yes.
And so it took a look at all of those.
And I think that's what people think. They just think of teachers, and as far as the school system, well, it's just teachers, and not realizing that
it's a lot more than that to make it work. However, having said that, we are primarily focused in getting our teacher pay being equitable, because that's the group we're having trouble attracting and keeping. So what we've done is there are support folks in that, instructional assistants, nurses, anybody that's not a teacher but still in the school. We're also looking at their pay structure as well, and that's part of this as well. The one group that we're going to leave alone right now is administration. So I just want to make that clear. That
I'm sure that makes people happy.
That administrators,
especially your salary, they just want to cut that back
cut
there.
It back. I understand, but but administrators are they're vital. Leadership in a school system, anything, any business. Is critical, and we have some excellent administrators. At some point we do need to address that, because many of those salaries are not equitable either compared to other administrators. Now, compared to what a teacher makes, absolutely it's better. So we're kind of leaving those alone right now, and we're primarily looking at teachers, but we're also looking at bus drivers, instructional assistants, nurses, those kinds of positions as well.
Yeah,
and so we've divided it into 3 years, 3 phases. With this first phase looking at years 11 through 25 of a teacher scale. Hopefully next year we'll be able to address the 0 to 10, and the following year the 25 to 30. And along with that, each year we're trying to do at least one of the support groups. This year I'm pretty sure we're going to be able to address bus drivers. That's what I was working on all morning. Figuring out the other parts of the budget to make sure that we have those funds. But if we can address bus drivers, that's a huge support group that we also have trouble attracting.
That's hard, because you realize you're just asking them to work 2 hours in the morning and 2 hours in the afternoon, and for a part-time job. For the split shift, so to speak. That takes a lot of commitment for someone to be a bus driver.
Yep, it does. And they have a CDL license.
That's another thing. You got to have a CDL.
The CDL license are very valuable. So we end up being a training ground for them as well. So we'll train somebody. We do it. We train them. They get their CDL license. They might drive for us for a month or two, and then they can go get an upgrade to that CDL and be driving big rigs on the road.
Sure.
So that's exactly what they do.
Well, like I said, I looked through the budget, and we sat there and heard the public speak, and people really, I think they overall supported teachers.
I believe
I
that
think,
too.
there was some, but I would say the majority, really want to make sure that the teachers are taken care of, and that the county and the school board recognizes that they're going to stand behind the budget and the voters and the taxes and everything else. And so, there was a little bit of animosity, I think, among some people, but as it does.
Well, and what I would say, a dissenting view is a good thing. I mean, I don't want, and even in my own office and the people I work with, I appreciate when somebody has a different idea and has something else to look at.
Sometimes you didn't think of that.
Right, absolutely. Now, I certainly want it to be expressed in a way that's considerate.
Exactly.
And I think that's part of it. And I know there's a lot of emotion involved, and that's okay too. But a dissenting view, what I was going to say is it's critical to our democracy. And public schools are certainly a democratic thing. So I appreciate the dissenting view, and I appreciate other people's ideas and thoughts. And quite honestly, I got ideas from the public during this whole process that we are looking at. We're relooking at how we do health insurance. It's a complicated process to change health insurance carriers, but we are looking at it. So that was one of the ideas that we were looking at. One of the other things someone gave me was, do you allow teachers to job share? Because there are some times that people with young families, they don't want to have a full-time job, and we already do that. We actually have a position right now at Warren County Middle School with job sharing going on. So it's something we're open to. We'd be open to that more. So I guess what I would say is if you're a teacher that's not working and that would be something you'd be interested in, let me know. We'll look at that.
Right. Well, you talk about the benefits in health insurance, but benefits in general. Sometimes, I've talked to my own employees over the years, and they don't really realize of all the extra costs that go into salary.
Right.
That you see your check and you do see your Social Security and your taxes, but there's FUTA, SUTA, health insurance. There's all these other little things that add up. I typically tell people it's about 22%, not counting my health insurance. That gets sucked in there, and you add that, so you have $1 million payroll, and all of a sudden now you got $1.5 million payroll without even changing anything.
Yeah, any new dollars, and that's something that any new dollars that we got for increasing salaries, part of that's going to benefits. So it's around 25%, like you said, that we have to consider.
Well, health insurance, we have the group, and you have the individuals that are not on the group, and you got families, and you got working families, and sometimes, and I think the town has this problem as well, that when things were good and money was flowing, they offered a lot of benefits, and now that money gets tight, all of a sudden, you're trying to make it fair and equitable. Like if you're paying 100% for your employee because he's single, then you got now, or she, and now you've got a family, and you're paying 80% of their family. Well, the family just got a $12,000 a year raise over the end of. Is that fair and equitable?
Right. So we try to figure all that out. When it comes to health insurance, we have added quite a bit to that benefit in the last 3 years. It's been over $1 million that we've added from our budget to be able to pay for health insurance that the employee doesn't have to pay. Having said that, we still have some work to do. In the review that we did this year, we're a couple $100 behind per month, like a Frederick County. So that's another piece that we need to look at is how are they doing that? Because we're actually in the same pool as Frederick County there, I believe.
Well, there was some talk about, I didn't realize this, but the county and the school board are on separate policies. So the pool is smaller and it always did aggravate me when I had group insurance that we're all in the same state, we all go to the same health provider. Why do we have all these different pool structures?
And that's the way it's set up.
Well, yeah, because they make a lot more money.
I guess. Yeah. So, it's just like this year, we had no increase to our health insurance.
That was shock.
Zero.
That was shock.
Now, last year, we had 20%.
Yeah, big
so
number.
The other thing I would say about the pool is being in the pool that we're in, because we're in local choice, it's a statewide thing.
Right.
The actual increase should have been 26%. But because of that pool, they took that 6% away from us. So even though it was a huge number, it was not as big as what our actual usage of the insurance showed.
You sound like my financial
Yeah.
advisor said, well, you only lost 22% this month. Well, you could have lost 30, you know,
Yeah.
that's what.
But it's all related to how much you use the insurance.
It is.
It comes back to that. When we have over the years have had several times where we've gone out to bid and looked at things. It comes back to how much do you use your insurance, and if you have some high claims, that makes a difference. So there's lots of things to consider.
Well, we have an aging, that's the other thing. You want teachers with experience, but the aging teachers bring high insurance costs. So it's kind of a...
And the other thing, when you address the benefit of health insurance, you're only addressing the financial component of about 60% of our staff. 40% of our staff get their health insurance elsewhere. So, you know, if we have a choice between giving a raise, a 3% raise to everybody, or cutting back on, you know, reducing the healthcare costs, we would only be impacting 60% of our staff if we did the healthcare costs.
Kind of like we talked about whether it's fair and equitable or not.
So
you're trying to benefit everyone. It's kind of hard to do that.
So that's why we've often, when we only are able to offer a cost of living, we do that instead of a health insurance thing. So it's a catch-22 in some.
Well, I want to give you an idea that I think is great, because it's my idea, of course, right? Back in the last year, we were talking about the workforce housing program, and the idea of it was, well, we're going to provide affordable housing for policemen and school teachers and nurses. Well, we all know that you can't discriminate against your job, that it's basically going to be an income window.
Yeah.
So my idea was, and we talked about it, of course, I talked to everybody about different ideas, come up with this idea of things that the school board could do is take this $3 million we're going to build 24 apartments with, just using round numbers now and hypotheticals, and put that in a pool that says, okay, you're a new teacher, you come here, or any teacher, and you want to move to our community, we're going to provide, let's just say, the 20% down on your house for your down payment. And the longer you work for us, up to a certain point, you have to pay us back. Go back in the pool. If you move out of our community and quit working for the school board, now that loan is going to, when you sell your house, it'll be a lien on it. We'll take it back. But the longer you work for us, this loan is reduced down and possibly even could go back to zero. So that money then is, if the people do move, it's going back in the pool, because you've been in community, you've moved, I'm sure, in your career, and it's a real pain when you have to make it. If you're living in an apartment, it's real easy to. That's not an issue moving. Right. But when you got a house and roots and a mortgage to pay, you think twice about taking a $20,000 loss on your house to move to get a $10,000 a year job. Right. So, the whole idea, and I think, outside the box, let's dig roots into our community. So I want to get that out there on the record so that we can say, no one ever told me that, I'm going to tell you. But, you could do it with the police department. That you can discriminate against. You can say, okay, it's a program just for teachers because we're putting this on. So maybe we could take a small portion of the budget each year and kind of build a pool, because it will self-generate, and it'll turn around less money than what you're going to go to pay people, somewhere you got to figure it all out,
We do something similar when we pay for a teacher's continued professional development. Exactly. They take courses.
How about school loans?
If they get a degree,
and their state have a program?
I was going to say the state does that, but if we help a teacher get a master's degree in a hard to fill area,
right,
they're required to spend so many years with us after that master's degree, or they have to pay us back.
Right.
So it's a very similar idea.
So the idea is that it's like putting a hook on it. You know what I mean?
No,
to kind of like we've hooked them in.
Good idea.
So, but anyway, just an idea, and not necessarily that, but that concept of getting people to make a part of the community and not feel like they're transient and they're just passing through. Right. So when we hire people, we want them to stay.
Right.
Because I do know you recruit outside the area as well, because I know we've hired teachers from Pennsylvania,
heavily
New York.
From Pennsylvania. Yeah. Virginia does not produce enough teachers for us.
Because if you think about Prince William, I mean, they hired 700 or
Loudoun
whatever the number, Loudoun County
is 800.
And that's just one county.
I think those two counties, and I'm not sure exactly which two, but there's two counties in Virginia can hire every teacher produced by Virginia every year.
Wow.
And there's 135 school divisions.
That's hard to believe, isn't it?
So if we couldn't go outside, if Pennsylvania ever doesn't produce enough teachers, we're in trouble. So that's the other reason to be as competitive as we can locally. having competitive salaries so that, we're not last in line.
Exactly.
And that's
and that's the other thing. We need to promote our community, and a great place to live. I mean, and the schools and the shopping and our housing. It's a big picture. It's not just one thing.
Nope.
And it's a whole lifestyle, and there's people that want to come here.
Absolutely.
And we just have to go and find them.
Yeah.
And maybe we drag them out of New York, and they come to the country, get them south of that Mason-Dixon line.
We get them from New York as well. Yep. New York, Ohio. Yep.
Well, it's great. I do know we have a lot of really good teachers. Some of the people have asked me about, do we still have to worry about tenure in our school system nowadays? Used to be a big thing.
We do. I mean, my goal would be anybody that's doing harm to children is not going to stay. I mean, that's just the bottom line. We'll do everything we can, and we have, if somebody's doing harm. We try to help everybody get better. Quite honestly, in the last 6 or 7 years, as turnover has been so great, that hasn't been as big of a problem because people are just leaving.
Right.
But we evaluate every teacher. They're observed by principal, assistant principals, central office staff. We certainly take parent input and other community input at times as well, and we deal with every time there's a concern, we deal with it, and it either gets better. We have, it's not just teachers, but we have plans of improvement that we do with folks. By and large, most folks do great.
Well, you hear those stories about teachers making big money, and all they do is sit there in study hall. Not so much in Warren County, but like in the big city in Chicago and New York, you read about these stories about they can't get rid of the teacher because they're tenured. They're tenured.
It's more difficult once a teacher gets continuing contract. After their 5th year, they're on what's called a continuing contract. They just have more rights in terms of the process that they need to go through. But if they've done something wrong or illegal or immoral, I mean that's not a problem.
How about merit raises? How would that work in our school system? I mean, you talk about
that's a big question. Merit's been tough in school systems. It very rarely has been successful long term because it ends up costing a lot of money. People rise to the occasion that you expect them to rise.
Sure.
So if you give teachers merit for having them get a 70% pass rate in their classes, well, you'd be giving that to everybody.
Right.
Because that's almost everybody does that.
Well, every year you'd have to raise it.
Yeah, so it'd have to be something. So it's not something I'm against. I think it has merit.
Right.
But it's
just how to apply it and implement it.
I mean, I know years ago, Fairfax County had the merit process in place, and it just got too expensive.
Yeah.
I know I think it was the year I came to Warren County in 1987. We moved here in '83, and then I started teaching here in '87. There was a merit concept with administrators, and because I had talked to the principal that had hired me, and he basically told me at that time is that every principal made the level that they were supposed to get to, whatever the standard was, and the school board didn't have enough money to pay them.
Right. So
it's tough to implement. It's not that we shouldn't look at it.
Maybe we need to look at things other than money.
Yeah.
Maybe that's I always give the example in the military. We jump in front of bullets for that little ribbon on our uniform, and that 25-cent ribbon. You know what I mean? I'm just saying that's an example.
And
maybe
and
extreme.
those are the types of ideas that
people
I
love
certainly
recognition.
Welcome. Absolutely.
You give a man a title, and that's.
And then after a while, you wish you didn't have it. No, just kidding. Just kidding.
But there's a lot of things like that. We go back to healthcare real quick. I tell you, my son-in-law worked out here at A.S. Rhodes, and he did go back to Prince William County, but it was primarily benefits because of the insurance was so much better. And the wages. I argued with him about the cost of commuting, and I did the drew the line on the paper, the whole thing, and put the pros and the cons and the cost. But it's still, when the young couple is struggling, and every little to them, $1,000, $5,000 is a lot of money.
It's a big deal.
And not realizing that you're going to waste that in your car and your time. But
there are some people that doesn't matter.
It doesn't.
I will say there are people that they've stayed here, and I commend them, and I appreciate what they've done. They've stayed here despite the fact that they are among the lowest paid. That is true.
Well, I've always said, pay really isn't the number one reason people leave a job.
It isn't.
It's typically down 7 or 8, but it's the reason we justify leaving a job.
Yeah.
Because, management or something comes down, or we don't like the policy, or someone made us mad, we justify leaving because, I can get this better job, it pays more money. And rarely,
I think with what we've seen with most teachers, not everyone, that have left, is that they do give finances is the main thing, whether it's benefit or pay.
Right.
That's the main thing. They're occasionally they're disgruntled, but not too often. I've been very pleased over the years to not have too many disgruntled employees. We have a few. We have 800 employees.
I was going to say, what's the total number of employees? Around 800.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot of people to keep happy.
Yep, and you don't. You
No.
do your best, and you try to be fair and equitable, and keep everybody on the same page about what our primary mission is, and that's educating our students. And that's what, whether you're a bus driver, instructional assistant, cafeteria worker, it's all about what is the student achievement going to be like? Are you helping create a good citizen?
Well, the Royal Examiner is trying to get the story out about our schools and about the great things that we're doing.
And I certainly noticed that, and I certainly appreciate it. It's been a big help, I think, this year, where people.
We're trying to recognize some of the our unsung heroes, so to speak.
Yeah. Let me say just one thing about actual budget documentation.
Sure. What we started talking about, right?
Yeah. Our budget, for anybody that's interested, I know one of the things I heard was being open and transparent about
That's
our
the
budget.
buzzword of
I'm for it. I want to be that way. The transparency we currently have is our entire budget is on our website. It's there. We use a program called Board Docs.
Right.
That is available to anybody in the public. It's on our website as well. It may be a little difficult to find. If somebody wants to know it, I'm happy to email it. I think I may have put it on Facebook a time or two. But that Board Docs every month lists every single check that we write and who we're paying it to. So if somebody's really interested, and it's searchable, so you can go to that and you can say,
you can drill down
and see if you have an interest in something, or how much money we're spending on a certain item, or did we, follow this certain plan.
And it shows where it goes to in the budget items.
Yes, it identifies the line that it comes from.
That's really interesting.
So that's all there for everybody. However, I wrote it down so I wouldn't forget, there's 1,465 lines in our budget. That's a lot.
That's a lot.
And I can see where it's difficult to drill down and figure out what it all means.
And sometimes they're lumped together in different schools, and then
we're required to keep a budget by the state by function, but we also keep it by what we call cost center. Like a school is a cost center.
Right.
The transportation department is a cost center. So there's some complications in looking at the budget, but I would say anytime anybody from the public has wanted to come in and speak with me and ask questions, I always meet with them.
Right.
And I'm happy to do that. Any of us would be about, tell me, why do you spend money on this? Or
exactly.
what is that?
Exactly.
And, I would point out that we also, our classification compensation study looked at the largest part of our budget. 80% of our budget is personnel.
And that's like any business.
So we just reviewed 80% of our budget in a very detailed way, and what we found out is they're saying we need to spend more money, right? They said
of course.
we're not going. Well, they said you're not in line. If you want to be equitable with Frederick County, you're not in line with what you're currently paying. You need to spend more. They also said that taking a look at all the teacher positions you have and comparing them to the folks around us, you need 63 more teaching positions. That's a lot more money.
That's a lot more money. So
in essence, we took a close look at 80% of our budget, and right off the top, we were told you've got an expense there of about $5 million. So
that's a big percentage.
That's a big chunk. So we're looking at that. I know that putting 63 positions in our budget's not reasonable, and probably would never happen in the course of even 10 years.
Right.
But we have identified a number of areas where we know we need additional supports for our kids, and we're going to slowly work at that too. So that's another piece of it.
Oh, that's great. One thing I want to talk to you just quickly before we end. There's a lot of thrown around about our schools not accredited. Exactly what does that mean?
So
Is it as serious as we talk about, or is it's serious? But
all of our schools are accredited.
okay.
Okay. There's three stages in accreditation. There's accredited, just straight accredited. There's accredited with conditions, and then there's not accredited. So.
So we're not in that bottom section.
No, we're not. We have one school right now that's accredited with conditions. Skyline Middle School is working on some English. So that's it. That's what we've got. I do have concerns, and I mentioned that during the budget process, because I've noticed a slight downturn in student achievement. It's not gotten to the level where we're not accredited, but I don't want to get there. So I'm trying to be proactive. To be accredited, several things have to happen. First of all, you have to have a 70% pass rate or better in in math and science, and a 75% pass rate or better in English. And not just for the total group of kids, but all of the students are divided into subgroups, either by ethnic category or finance, or how the level of income that a family has, and special education. So all of those subgroups, not only does the whole group have to be at 75%, but each subgroup has to be. So the students that are in most need still have to achieve at the same level. And if you don't get that in math, science, or English, you can become accredited with conditions. There's a plan that needs to be put in place. And I'll just say another thing that's on our website. Every school website, the school plan is there. It tells you each part of the school that they're looking at for each content area, and it tells what they're doing to improve. So that's also available to the public to be transparent as well. So you have those student achievement areas. Then the other thing that's been just added is attendance.
I was just going to ask you about that. That's the Challenge 5.
Challenge 5.
And that affects the budget.
It can.
It does. If the attendance drops below the...
Well, it's membership. It's a little bit different. It's a little bit different.
But there's money tied to it.
There's money tied to it. There is money tied to it. So it's not tied to attendance. I wouldn't make that clear.
Okay.
It's whether they're enrolled in school or not.
Right.
So we get roughly $4,500 per student that's enrolled in our schools, and that's half of our budget right there. So when we have kids that unenroll from our school, we actually lose money during the course of the year.
Right. And all those expenses to carry that are already in place.
They're there already.
And so you can't go back and...
Yep, it's very difficult. So we got the achievement areas, and we got the attendance. And how attendance is counted, it's called chronically absent. So if a student is missing more than 10% of the year, that's 18 days,
right,
they're considered chronically absent. And if 15% of your students in a school or more are chronically absent, then you could become accredited with conditions as well. And we have a number of our schools where that's the case. So this first year, we got that number. We've made improvements at every school, but we're still going to have several schools, I believe, we'll find out at the end of the year, but several schools that are above that 15% chronically absent.
And you wouldn't think that would be the case, would you? That's another one of these areas that people really aren't really aware of these things. They just think everybody goes to school, but there's a lot of reasons why.
We have some kids that attend very poorly, so for a variety of reasons.
Do we still have truant officers?
We actually do. We have.
You don't hear much of that anymore.
We do. We have two, and we, like I said, we take it all very seriously. We try to work with families to support them. There's a lot of times there's good reasons why they're not coming.
Sure.
A lot of times it's just the makeup of the family causes some of the issues, but then we do have some where there's we take kids and families to court at times, so we actually are involved at that level. Not too often, but it happens.
Right.
High schools also have to have a certain graduation rate.
Right.
They have to be at 85%, which we're well above. We're 90-some. And they have to have a low dropout rate. You can't have more than 6% dropout, which we are not anywhere close to that. We're at 3 or 4 right now.
Well, I've seen the LFCC commencements this weekend, and we have almost 300 graduates from Warren County.
Yeah.
And maybe
cool.
some of these are dual enrollments or something, but which I think is the greatest program that the state has done. But that's sending people on to more education is probably is something
Big
that.
Deal. We have 19 students this year graduating with an associate's degree or certification from Lord Fairfax Community College.
Along with their high school
before
diploma?
they graduated.
Oh, wow.
Before they graduated, because they graduated this tomorrow.
Right.
Tomorrow.
It's tomorrow.
Tomorrow is actually the day that.
Right.
And they're going to graduate with that degree before they graduate June 1st with a high school diploma.
Oh, and that's something.
19 kids.
Well, that's
pretty
great.
neat.
That's
awesome.
great. That's
Yeah.
that's your future leaders.
Yep.
That's
Very
what
good.
it is.
So-
Well, one other thing, real quick, because when I was at LFK, I noticed that your resource officer was Deputy G. I didn't see what his
Deputy G.
deputy.
Okay.
And it was a young guy.
Yeah.
And because normally you always think they put these old guys ready to retire over there, you
Yeah.
know. And are you happy with the program?
How was he doing? Did he do all right?
He looked like he
Doing
was active doing his
Yeah.
job. So.
So just, you'll remember last year at the budget, I think
Because that was another expense that
Yeah.
went into the budget.
it was, I think, was it a penny or a half penny
Yes.
to the resource officers? So we have a resource officer now assigned to every school, all 9 of our
Because
schools.
this came up in the budget. People were
Right.
talking about scrapping those
Yeah,
resource officers.
I would hesitate doing that. They've been a great support. They're there as a protection, absolutely, but they're another caring adult that our kids can connect to,
Right.
and they're there to support students no matter what.
Well, I think with,
So-
as we watch television and you see the attitude towards the police
Mm-hmm.
sometimes, this is a good opportunity for that to be back into
Be a more
community.
healthy relationship.
A much
Yeah,
more healthier relationship, which will help be a lifetime
Yeah.
a benefit that we'll
Absolutely.
have in our community. So
Yeah.
I think that's important to make
Yep.
sure that we.
They've been great. It's taken almost a year to get all of them trained. It's a long process. Not just you just can't
Just
go out
let
and
some
hire
show
people.
up
Yeah.
and say, come and walk around the halls.
So, but I think we're fully staffed now, which is great, and they're going to help us in the summer with our summer programs as
Right,
well.
right.
So
That's another thing. You've got tons of programs that goes
Yeah.
on during the summer.
Yeah, all
I mean,
summer,
it's
all summer long.
unless you have kids in school, and even then, I mean,
Yeah.
you don't really realize
We're running all the time.
running. It's year round.
Yeah.
Well, that brings up one real quick question about the pay. I'm sorry, it just keeps going and going. But we talk about this pay and our students, and someone brought this up that our teachers making $43,000 a year to start as a teacher, but that's only a 9-month or 10-month contract.
200-day contract.
200 days.
200-day contract. A typical full-time is considered 250 days.
That's true, about 250.
250. So a typical full-time.
So they're getting 2 months off.
Yep. Yeah,
So
a
if you add the 2, do you
You'd have to pay
equalize the pay?
You'd have to pay them for it. Yeah.
Right.
You got to remember, teaching is a profession. They've got degrees, and in many cases advanced degrees. That is it's one of the lowest paid professions.
Right.
You just have to remember that is a something that we might complain how much doctors get, and how much attorneys get, and how much architects get, and all that kind of stuff. But they're professions. That's what
it is. Well, and I tell people all the time, we pay on a curve.
Right.
You have the lowest paid job there is over here, and the highest paid brain surgeon over
Right.
here, and somewhere in the middle.
Right.
And it all boils down to how hard is it to replace the person. It takes
Right.
a lot of years to replace a brain surgeon,
Right.
and it doesn't take very long to train someone to
dig a ditch.
dig a ditch or
Dig a
sweep the
ditch.
street,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
isn't the
We need
you
to
have
have
to
it.
have.
You have
New
to
York
have it.
City found that out when
Yeah. Yeah,
their
you have to have
trash
it.
men didn't pick up the trash. I mean, so it's not about how valuable the job is. It boils
Right.
down to how hard is it to
replace.
replace them.
Right.
And it's getting more in the teachers thing because
More.
I still run across a lot of people that graduated as a teacher and never did it,
Right.
or did it for 1 year or
time.
6 months and quit because this is not for me.
It's a
And
hard job.
It's not easy.
It's a hard
not
job.
easy.
It's one of the most rewarding things you'll ever do if you become a teacher. It is. I wouldn't have traded anything that I've done for anything.
Wow.
But it can be very demanding, and there is a lot of public scrutiny. There's
There is,
a lot of
and
things
a
going
lot
on.
of times it's through a magnifying glass. I mean, it's
Yeah.
very tiny and very
Yeah.
pinpoint, and people don't really see, the big picture,
Right.
the 30,000-foot view.
Yeah.
And part of what I want to talk about today was that view, not necessarily nitpick the budget, which that'd be real easy to do. Why do you need a car? Why do you need these 3 computers? Why do you need, and I can remember when Congressman Goodlatte was in an interview and we were talking about, $10 million. Well, he said, that's just a drop in the bucket, unless it's got another 0 or more on it. And it's all relative to the scale. And I always tell people, when you want to look at the budget and work it, drop a 0 or 2 off the end, and it makes your mind wrap around. We can understand $460, not $460,000 or $4,600,000. So we got to relate it to something that we can relate to. But I do appreciate you coming in and talking to us, and we want to, and hopefully we'll do more of this in the future, and try to make things as transparent and work with our governments and our counties.
And if you get questions from the public that you'd like me to respond to, I'd be happy to do that.
Right. Well, and that you're going to get quite a few negative Facebook comments, but like I say, we just let those roll off your back. And
I try to.
But I do know you do answer.
Yeah. When I see something that makes sense, even though it might not be said in a kind way, I'll look at it. We will. We'll take a look. I want to be better. I know we're not the very best we can be. We're good, but we're going to continue to improve.
Well, that's what we want to do. We want to, and we're the same way. So we want to try to improve and to make things better. And again, make Front Royal Warren County a great place to live. Raise your children.
It's all about the community.
Cradle to grave. That's what we're trying to do.
I moved here in 1983 because I loved it, and I still do. And so that's.
And you work for less money
than some other people.
You could have moved to Frederick County.
Maybe, yeah, I did. No, and I had an opportunity. I actually, as a teacher, I was about 7 years in, and we both my wife and I looked at Loudoun County.
Yeah,
and
when you
we
look
got
at
up
it,
there, and it just didn't fit.
Yeah.
We actually were offered jobs, and we just. Yeah. I hate to say it. That's probably about the only time I've turned a job down.
Right.
That I went on an interview to try to get.
Sure.
But it wasn't for me, and the people here are great. It's a wonderful place. Almost everyone does support schools.
Right.
You have some different ideas about how to do it, and that's okay.
Well, I really, and we've had 2 large meetings in the last month or so, turning out to government meetings, 200 plus each time, and I know things got fired up and but I think as people become more in tune with what's going on and involved in the process, that things will be better.
Right.
It's got to be.
Yep. Ask the question. We'll do our best to answer it.
I think that's the other thing. People don't realize that, that there are people like yourself and your office is open.
Yep.
I mean, you can come and see our government officials.
Yep. People come in all the time.
Instead of showing up at a meeting once in a lifetime and rant and rave. I mean, let's put some I always say, you can complain all you want, but I want to see a solution. If you have a solution, I'll be more than glad. Even if I don't agree with it, I'll listen to it.
Sure. Absolutely.
I appreciate. That's the way we want to do it. Well, again, Greg, I really appreciate all the time and coming in to see us, and we'll have you back.
I'd love to do it.
All right. Thanks.